Okay, here with us today we have Ankit from Intersect Labs. Welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Ben. Very nice to meet you, and thanks for having me here.
Yeah, of course. Why don't you give us a bit of a background about you and what Intersect Labs is?
Awesome. Yeah, happy to jump into it. So let me begin with my career background because that'll feed nicely into the background and genesis of Intersect Labs. So I've been a signal processing engineer, data scientist, machine learning engineer, whatever you call it, for about a decade now. Went to MIT, graduated, worked in a couple academic labs for a couple years, and then went into the industry. And I've been doing this for about a decade now. Most recently, I was a consultant for a few small companies who wanted to get started on their machine learning journey. So think building their first machine learning model or deploying their first machine learning model. And that's when I realized that a lot of my workflow was fairly repetitive across companies. I was looking at data, I was cleaning data, I was trying out a few machine learning models. And once I found the most accurate one, I was deploying that machine learning model so my clients could make predictions. And so I started building some tools to help automate some of my workflow. And as my clients saw some of those tools, they wanted access to them. And so that's when I started turning that into a product. And now we have the company Intersect Labs.
Awesome. Yeah, I love the sort of build for yourself and then it just sort of happens to grow into something bigger. So when was Intersect Labs? When did you start that?
The first line of code was written just about 2 years ago, probably August, first week of August 2018. Or 2019, or 2018, that's right. We officially became a company around November of that year. And then last year, February was when we released the product, got our first customer.
Awesome. And then I see you were in YC. Which batch were you in there?
That's right. We went through YC summer of 2019.
That was one of the last ones they did in person, right?
The last one that was fully in person. Winter 20 started in person, but quickly had to be moved online. And then summer 20, which is the current batch, is completely online.
Yeah. How was your experience in YC?
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
Sorry, how was your experience there in YC?
Oh, the experience was fantastic, especially because it was in person. But regardless, I think it was great to be surrounded by super ambitious people who not only pushed you but also encouraged you, gave you a lot of advice. And then obviously, I've never run a startup before. I worked at a couple of startups before, and so running a startup is a completely different ballgame, as I'm sure you know. And it was great to hear from our regular speakers about their experiences of running startups, and then obviously our partners who are sort of our mentors. They've seen, they've helped scale thousands of companies before, and so it was great to talk to them regularly and either do a quick gut check on whether you were doing things the right way or get just very specific advice on how to proceed.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I mean, I completely resonate with that of building a product or being like just, oh, I'm going to build this stuff this week or build this today to, oh, wait, this is a company. I'm going to run it like a company. Right. That's been a big journey for me too, especially the last few months, realizing that like I was a problem and I needed to get out of the way of the team in some aspect. So yeah, I definitely feel you there. I spoke with someone from Adalo recently who we brought in about like the fact that data scientists almost wasn't a thing. I don't know how many years ago. I might shoot myself in the foot, but like say 10, 15, 20 years ago, it wasn't a thing, data scientists. And then all of a sudden it's like you have data engineers, you have all these machine learning engineers and all of these pieces around it. And I said, I think NoCode is like in this early stage of people are doing NoCode stuff like they were doing data stuff. And actually, I think I see there's more of a convergence into bringing that no-code stuff, in quotes, to work. Do you see much of that happening? And do you recognize any similarities in how those two communities are sort of booming and taking place?
Yeah, 100%. By the way, you're completely accurate. Data science as a phrase was coined by DJ Patil. I think he was a data science, or he was, I think, in a leadership position at LinkedIn, if I'm not mistaken. And he was the first one who coined this phrase. He later went on to become, I think, the first chief data scientist of the United States. But yeah, that's a random trivia right there.
When was that? How many years ago?
It was likely, I think, around 2008.
Okay, yeah, wasn't too far off then. Also,
No,
in the ballpark.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, 100%. I think just as data science became super popular, and as a concept, data science has been around for ages now. People looking at a lot of data and trying to figure out either what happened or what will happen. And then similarly, yeah, I think no code as a movement has been a recent phenomenon as well, and it's great to see those to converge. When we started out, I didn't think specifically of no code. I just said, oh, someone's got to make it easier, right? Currently, machine learning or data science is limited to a few people who know both programming and have some background of statistics. And by the way, also understand the business problem, right? And so I figured, someone had to come along and make it easier for people who were just belonging to the third category, people who were really good at their business, they knew everything about their business. But yeah, I think as we've progressed on this journey, it's become abundantly clear that no code as a thing is probably here to stay, and more importantly, it's here to grow.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, I agree with that. I think it's one of those things that companies, even something like Webflow, which is around for a long time, or has been, relatively long in the startup world.
Yeah.
They didn't start off with, we're going to be a no-code X or no-code Y. It's just like, we do this, and yeah, you don't have to code to do it. And then this whole movement comes around, and then people sort of pull that no-code phrase out of you and say, yeah, you're a no-code tool. And we even see it as essentially anything that integrates with another tool, like any of the 2,000 plus Amazon, Zapier, like they're in the ecosystem. Like they're still, like you can do workflows with those things. So yeah, we see no code as a huge piece that is not just like here to stay, but it's been here and it's been staying here for a while. It's just now that people are realizing the power of specifically sort of new tools. And do you think that's more? Why do you think now? Why do you think people are latching onto that now? Do you think is it computing power of what's available, and like companies like yourself where things like data science maybe wasn't accessible enough, and now all of a sudden it's a click of, I'm gonna say a few buttons to do those sort of complex things you may not have been able to do before?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So specifically with data related stuff, I think the first time people started collecting data seriously was probably around the time like Google and Facebook were becoming big, right? So that was, I would say, late 2000s when people really started understanding the value of data. And then in the following 5 years, you saw a lot of businesses just saying, oh yeah, we're going to collect data and we'll figure out what to do with it later.
Yeah.
Right? And then during that time, a lot of people started getting employed as data scientists, as these experts who could take whatever data that businesses had been collecting into and turn them into some insights or predictions about the future. And then I think more recently, what I've personally seen happen is that a lot of businesses started collecting data probably around like 5 years ago. That's when a lot of like small and medium-sized businesses started collecting data more seriously. And so we're at a point where compute power has become crazy powerful and just crazy cheap, right? It costs pennies to train a machine learning model now. We're also at a point where businesses have been collecting good data for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? And so I think this is a magic moment where a lot of business people want to start using their data and putting it into action, right? Making good use out of it. And at the same time, like you said, Webflow has been around for a few years. I think almost half a decade now, if I'm not mistaken. And so people are starting to see, oh yeah, previously website development was limited to engineers or designers. Now I can build a website. Why can't I turn my data into predictions? Why can't I like slice and dice my data myself without having to rely on someone specialized? And so that's why I think this is the magic moment for like NoCode plus data.
Yeah, and you said about like it's the big companies that are taking, like when they took notice or made it almost popular by saying, yeah, we're using data to do all this fancy stuff. I mean, yesterday I think it's called Honeycomb from AWS
That's
came
right.
out. Google they acquired was AppSheet recently.
Yep.
Microsoft Power Apps has been around since 2015 or something, and it's
Right.
actually now getting a bit more popular. But you also said that there was like these experts who started like getting hired by companies or came into the crowd and showed off what they could do. What types of companies, what types of communities, I suppose, were crucial in helping that happen and showing off data science isn't just this thing you hear about, like this is how it works, this is how powerful. Because there's one, I mean, I know of Kaggle, which
Right.
I've known for years, and actually I think Google bought them, right?
That's right.
And they were always a fascinating company, and I loved the idea of it years and years ago. And I think that yeah, it's cool to see that. So I wonder if there's anything specifically you've seen, because I think on the design side you see Dribble, and then that's like the credentialing for designers, GitHub credentialing for all types of developers. I wonder if you've seen anything else in the data science world that I don't know might be interesting for me to take a look at, because I'm just interested in all these different communities and sort of credentialing of that.
Yeah, good question. I think Kaggle is by far the most powerful community for anything data related. Right. It's also great because until Kaggle came along, if you wanted to learn data science stuff or practice your like data manipulation skills, you were limited to whatever data you could conjure up yourself. Right. And then came along Kaggle, and suddenly they had these challenges, they had these leaderboards, they had these competitions. Where you could just get access to really cool data, right? It started off with simple like tabular data, and now today you can get images, videos, audios, everything, right? And so I think Kaggle is by far the leader in terms of communities. There's also I think a bunch of communities on LinkedIn and Facebook, which sort of support each other. There's a few Slack groups out there where as a data scientist you can volunteer your time to help like do cool analyses for like public causes and stuff like that. So there's these little pockets of niche communities. And then something else that's super fun in terms of like how data science became more visible, I think, is the story of Facebook's growth team. And I think it was Chamath of Social Capital who assembled a growth team at Facebook with like super data savvy people, and they slice and dice like all kinds of data. And they came out with this thing where they realized if someone had at least 7 friends on Facebook, they were like extremely low likelihood of churning as a user. And so from that point on, Facebook directed all their energy in their product to make sure that as soon as you signed up, you added at least 7 friends, right? And that was magical. And then there was this other story that Target came out with, where like the data scientist or the data science team analyzed purchase histories and started recommending products to buy in the little flyers that went out by mail to people's houses, and they were personalized. And this one person, based on the purchase history, they were able to figure out that this person was pregnant or likely pregnant, and so they started recommending pregnancy stuff, like maternity wear and stuff like that. But she hadn't declared to her family that she was pregnant, and that was fascinating.
I think I listened to this exact story on the podcast earlier today I think it was from My First Million with Sam Parr and Sean, and they're talking about it in terms of data privacy, and yeah, it's like this young girl, I think it was a young girl, and
exactly
like stuff getting delivered to her father or something.
Yeah, and obviously that was the first time people started raising concerns about privacy, rightly so, right? Because there's obviously ethical questions around what you can do with data. But that was also one of the first times people started realizing the power that data could have, right? It's just a bunch of numbers at the end of the day, but together it can like do really powerful things.
Yeah, I mean, it could be make or break, right?
Right.
So tell me a bit more about Intersect Labs and what you can do with it and how companies, users are using it right now.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, the way the product works is super simple. Like I mentioned earlier, the philosophy is that anyone who has historical data can start turning their historical data into predictions. And that's powerful because until now, that process has been limited to a few very few specialized individuals, data scientists who are good at programming, math and statistics, and have the domain expertise. Um, and until now, you had business analysts or data analysts who were really good at the business problem. They were really good at collecting all the historical data. Uh, but unfortunately, they were limited to, in their analysis, to explain what happened in the past rather than predicting what will happen in the future. So what happens now is that the same data analysts, and I use that title loosely, it's basically anyone who analyzes data. Um,
Yeah.
they can bring their data in a spreadsheet format, upload it to our platform, and select which column they want to be able to predict. And once they do that, our platform takes over. It'll first clean the data, which is to say that if you have missing values, or if you have strings in your data set, or if you have outliers, things that are typically bad for machine learning, our platform will take care of all of that automatically. It'll then select a few machine learning algorithms from the repository that we have, usually between 3 and 5, to train. It'll train all of those algorithms multiple times, and as it's doing so, it's also assessing the accuracy. And once it identifies a super accurate model, that model is deployed. So as a user, you can start making predictions right away. And you can do that one of two ways. You can either use our GUI, just upload a new spreadsheet, get a spreadsheet in return with predictions, or we have an API. So if you want to build the machine learning model into your stack, all you do is send as a JSON or a CSV your new data, and as a JSON, you would get back all the predictions that you need. And that's super powerful because a number of use cases, a subsidiary of Philips Health, for example, uses us to predict which patients will likely no-show their doctor's appointments. Right. Then we have a pretty big company who, one of the if I tell you, to name all the companies that have the best data science talent, this will be in the top 3. They actually, the business development team uses us because the business development team did not have access to the data scientists. And so they use us to predict or prioritize which leads to talk to based on the usage patterns that the users have on the platform. Then we have a snack box catering company, Oh My Green. I think they're now rebranded as Garten. They use us for everything from demand planning, forecasting inventory, logistics and supply chain management, predicting their warehouse costs. We have a small company in Massachusetts that helps people apply for disability insurance, and they use us to sort of predict which of their users will drop off, and proactively reach out to them multiple times to make sure that those users don't drop off. So yeah, there's a bunch of different use cases. E-commerce companies using us to predict their sales in the coming months, figure out price elasticity. So think, hey, if I do a 10% off promotion next month, what impact will it have on our revenue, that kind of stuff. So there's a whole lot of different use cases that we have. The one common thing across every single user is that they have historical data. They want to turn that historical data into predictions.
Awesome. Yeah, so it is really like across the whole operations of the business, anything really. It gets anything with numbers at some point you can do. That's awesome. Where is the company now, and what's next for Intersect Labs?
Yeah, good question. So we're a small team still, a team of 4 individuals, and super close knit. Even though we're all remote, actually, I was quite like that. Yeah. but yeah, in terms of what's next, actually, most recently, last week, we released a new product called Pasture. And the idea for that product is, early on, as customers wanted to use their data for machine learning, we were doing a lot of data restructuring or data wrangling for them using custom code. And so we started building some internal tools to help us do that easier. And again, when our customers saw some of those tools, they wanted access to them. So we turned that into a user-facing product. We call it Pasture because it pasteurizes your data, quite like pasteurization cleans your milk. And yeah, so that product has been released last week as a standalone tool. You can use it right before you use machine learning, or you can use it just to wrangle your data. And we've had some interesting use cases come out there as well. We have a company, actually a fellow batchmate from YC Legacy. They send out these giant surveys to their users to better help them. And they use Pasture to run decision trees on their surveys. So things like, if you run at least 5 miles a week, but don't eat enough like proteins and don't take supplements, okay, we recommend that you start taking some supplements. Or if you don't walk at all but eat like 5 servings of bread in a day, then we ask you to start like either walking more or eat less bread, that kind of stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, or like a VC firm is using us to do their due diligence analysis on like incoming deals. So yeah, that's where we are right now. I think moving forward, in general, we try to be as customer centric as possible. So if a customer says, "Hey, we need this," or if we observe a customer needing something, we try to build it into our platform. And so I think the upcoming thing is building workflows, because at the end of the day, data science is less about just training a model or like cleaning your data. It's that end-to-end thing where you have your data, you clean it, you train a model, and then you productionize it. And productionization can often mean, every Saturday morning, you want your data in your database to be pulled, predictions run on it, and the predictions dumped into a different table in the database, right? And so we're starting to build. Again, we have some internal tools to support that, but we're starting to build that into a user-facing product where users can come in and start defining some of the workflows that they want to have.
Awesome. It seems like this type of, to me, generally, it seems like data science or predicting things is almost when you've got things almost figured out, or you've figured some things out, or so it seems that it sort of lends itself to already established companies that have revenues, have customers, have certain things. Is that right, or is there space for, because with the no-code movement in general, we see a lot of people who like identify themselves as an entrepreneur or founder, which may not be already that, but they work somewhere else, but they're just using that as the power of discovering no-code and how they can build things. And then when is too early to start thinking about using data in what you're doing? Like, to me, it seems as if so many people try to start companies and do MVPs, and they celebrate when they get to like $100 monthly recurring revenue, which is great if they've never sold anything, but it could be an opportunity that they could have started using stuff before that isn't all qualitative, which is often the case at that early stage.
Yeah, that's a good question. Something you said early on in this question struck me. I think you said to you, like, predicting stuff has, seems like it's better suited for bigger corporations who have stuff figured out. And that's been true for the most part until now, mostly because until now you had to rely on data scientists to do that. And data scientists are expensive because they're super talented, right? Think someone who is really good at math and programming, often have PhDs, you obviously want to pay them a decent salary. And so, which is why predictions have been limited to some of the bigger companies. But smaller companies often have a lot of data, right? Enough data to just start turning that data into predictions. And that's where we come in, right? So you're right. Someone who's just built an MVP, has $100 in monthly recurring revenue, probably doesn't have enough data to start building machine learning model. But a company that's been around for, maybe a decade, makes easily like 100K a month, they might not have the ROI justification to hire data scientists, but they would definitely be able to afford our product and start, really like making massive either savings or revenue gains out of using us.
Awesome. Yeah. So I guess you would need a certain number of lines of data before it's really worth, like, otherwise I guess it can't even train the models and pull out anything useful, right?
Exactly, yeah, and if we had an FAQ page, which is coming shortly, the number one question would be how much data is enough, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, the answer to that is it depends, right? It
Yeah.
depends on the kind of accuracy you're looking for, but yeah, you're right. I think if you have like 100 rows of data, that's never going to be enough to build a machine learning model out of it. But the good news is that we always, anyone we talk to, if they're interested in figuring out if they have enough data, we just tell them, hey, send us your data, or let's hop on a live demo and we can train a machine learning model live, and we just figure out, right, if it's accurate enough or not. If it's not accurate, if you don't like it, then hey, keep collecting data, come back to us, maybe in a quarter, maybe in 2 quarters, and you'll be there. And we'll often give advice as to what other data that they can collect is. And yeah, the other thing is with the new product that we released last week, Pasture, you don't need a lot of historical data or any historical data, right? Because it's mostly just building either decision trees or some data wrangling workflows, which is why Legacy started to use us, right? Legacy, they're a fairly new company. Like I said, they were our batchmates in YC, so not enough historical data, but they still wanted to run decision trees, and they came up with a simple heuristics-based approach, I think designed by an epidemiologist. And they were able to use Pasture for a lot less money than our machine learning product. And now that they're collecting data, hopefully in 3 to 6 months' time, they'll have enough data, and we'll transition them over to the machine learning side.
Awesome. I assume with all the data that you're using, or people using you for predictions and things, they're expecting a level of accuracy. Do you ever worry about, or I assume you probably have had it once or twice where people are saying this didn't quite come out as your like saying your model, like as your model predicted. How do you get around things like that?
Yeah, fortunately, that hasn't come up too much. More often than not, people are pretty surprised that when they deploy the model in the real world, it comes out, the predictions match up with their expectations. But having said that, at the end of the day, it's a model, right? Especially when it comes to predicting human behavior sort of data, there's always going to be inaccuracies, right? Humans are irrational creatures at best, and so at the end of the day, we talk to them often. They often understand that things can get inaccurate, but in general, in a global picture, in a big picture view, on average, things are more accurate with machine learning model than without. And then obviously we encourage them to retrain their models every few months to make sure that all the new data that they've collected is factored in.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, I really appreciate you jumping on and talking about all this. I think it's been really interesting and not the sort of rabbit hole I usually dive down. So yeah, it's been great having you on. So why don't you tell the folks listening where they can find you and where they can find Intersect Labs?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks a lot for having me here. But yeah, if you're interested in getting started with machine learning, or just talking to us to explore whether you can get started with machine learning, just hop on over to intersectlabs.io. You'll see all the information you need. There'll also be a button to book a call, most likely with me or with one of our teammates, one of the other 3 teammates. We've all been doing this for a long time, so we'll be happy to take care of you. And then if you want to start using our newest product, Pasture, you don't even need to talk to us. Just hop on over to intersectlabs.io/pasture, PASTEUR. And I think we have a link to it on MakerPad as well. And you can just get started. We have a 2-week free trial. And then if you like it, keep using it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for getting on. And we're still have years of to show off some of the stuff. And again, get that NoCode and data science stuff together and show that off and help teach others too.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Ben.
Cheers.